everyone. It's Tara Myshrall, and I'm bringing you another Women's Spotlight. This is the special holiday edition, and I am so excited to bring on board another global woman in tech, the Hanna Hamid. She's super inspiring, not only because she's running the operations for Sigma Software Canada, but because she is an advocate out there for DEIB. Although she's a mother of two boys, she still finds time to run Sigma Canada, to go out there, make an impact, mentor, and grow young professionals, and provide acts of service every single day. I'm excited to be here with her today, and I hope you are too. So without further ado, Hanna Hamid.
Thank you so much for having me, Tara. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak to you today.
You are such a busy woman. So for you taking time out to share and to give back and to help others is really impressive and inspiring. So today I'm lucky enough to get you for the next half an hour. And really what I want to do is just explore your journey. Like technology, you've spent such a big career managing tech. You went out there and got your MBA, and now you're running operations for Sigma Software. Did you always want to be in tech?
No, the honest answer is no. You see, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be in business, run a company, work in operations. That was one dream. And then growing up, I started developing a sense of I want to help others. So I wanted to go and work for NGOs. I wanted to move back to Africa, where I'm originally from, and work with with war children, orphans. Africa have been through so many wars, and my own country, Sudan, has been through a civil war, different conflicts, and that has resulted in a lot of orphan kids, a lot of poverty. Not everyone have access to education, and I wanted to help back where I'm originally from. And this has changed, because I became a mom. I had two kids. I still have two kids now. They're almost 16 and 10. And a life of me living with them in Africa might not be very stable. I want them to have a good education. I want them to have stability. I don't want them to overnight, if something happens, we have to leave everything and move, like was the case with me growing up as a child when we came to Canada. So this has changed. And I always say that I found myself in tech by accident. It's a lovely accident, but the tech industry was always something I was interested in, but it's not an environment where I thought I would have a career. Yes. So
that's amazing. Well, and you're from Africa and you wanted to take them back there. I understand that. My son is turning 22 in less than 2 weeks, and he still feels like a baby, right? So as they start to get to that 16, you're like, oh, can you just go back to being 6? Yeah. I know that feeling, and the desire to keep them safe and to balance that with your need to give back. And so a couple things I want to dig into there. One, obviously, you don't know where the road's going to take you, but it's now that you're in technology as a female in tech, are you happy for that choice? Like, is that something that fulfills you? Tell us about that.
Yes, you see the tech. I love to be always on the move. I love learning. I hate routines. And being in the tech industry, it's an industry that is always moving forward, like super fast. So you always have to be learning new things. And also when I joined Sigma, I was hired to manage the operations of the Canadian division. And although I have managed companies before, but it's not the same. It's different because, I have to think about marketing sometimes. I have to think about, HR. So I'm wearing different hats every day, right? And I get to work with amazing people, and the team of Sigma as a whole globally, we're truly great. But the person I report into, who's an amazing woman, her name is Catherine Tulozova. Like, she's my boss, but at the same time, we kind of got close. So I learned so much from her, both like on a personal level, because she's a mother, she has two amazing kids, and she's always traveling, always busy. So I learn, you know, sometimes you see a mother doing one thing and you're doing it another way, but then you both learn from each other. So I find that we have this great complicity, me and her. Like, I'm learning from her when it comes to work. I'm learning, some tips, because I have two boys and she has two girls. So like, you raise boys and girls differently. And I find as a mother to two boys, I tend to be, I don't know, not rough, but like, like by the book, I don't know how to explain
You
it to
get
you.
in your masculine energy.
Exactly, exactly. So it's nice to see mothers who have daughters who have a different approach and so on and so forth. So, and I'm happy to be in tech. I don't know, I went into a tangent about
No,
motherhood.
it's perfect because tech is ever changing. It's the most
Yes,
rapidly changing thing on the planet. You know, imagine like think about AI and ChatGPT, and in the last 8 months, it has become the highest leveraged software concept on the planet, right? So we're talking about shifting the game in a very short period of time. And so you're constantly learning. But you
exactly.
also touched on something else, which is what it means to be a great leader. That's what I heard, because it sounds like you have a great leader because she's humble and she's teaching you and she's showing you how we can be in our feminine, but still be parents and strong leaders in tech. But you also just expressed to me that you are a great leader because you're humble and you're learning back and forth, and you're both teaching and growing together. And as we know, leaders, they never stop learning. So that was actually really good. You just took 3 questions out of the way for
Oh,
me.
great.
So I see that you love tech and you've got a great leader. And now, is that what sort of helped you start to work on these boards and give back to other up and coming women in tech as well?
In all honesty, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted acts of service is my love language. We all have different love languages, and me, it's doing acts of services for people around me. And I think this is why initially I wanted to work for NGOs in Africa to help others. So when I found myself in tech, and when I came into the tech industry, I noticed that it's very male dominated. Women don't have like, a big voice, or like, even if they have a big voice, like, sometimes their voice are not heard, and especially like women who are starting in this field. So because I wanted to feel that I'm giving back to my community, I started mentoring women who are freshly graduate young girls from universities, or women who have moved to Canada recently and are trying to either start a career in tech, or they were like doctors, or they were like engineers, but unfortunately their education is not recognized in Canada. So they're starting back again. And I tell them, you know what, the tech industry is a great segue for you to have a career, because you don't have to do 3 years at university. You could do some boot camp programs at some of the universities here. So you can not waste time and learn whatever you need to learn, and then have a career. So I help them, like, for example, like choosing the programs, how to apply for, it's very like trivial things, but sometimes filling a college application could be a hard task if you're not from here, if you don't know how to phrase your sentences. Or for instance, doing job interviews could be very, very stressful. And sometimes when you're a young girl, like, applying for your first job, or if you're a woman with a lot of experience, but not from here, you have language barrier, practicing for, going into an interview could be difficult. So we role play. I was managing a recruitment firm before, so I'm very good at, playing the recruiter,
Yes.
part. So just by doing that, and it helped me feel fulfilled, because I feel, yes, at my job, helping the clients, helping the employees we have, think about marketing strategy. I am helping my company advance, and, this is fulfilling. But at the same time, I know I am doing this because this is my job and it's expected from me. But when I help people who I don't owe anything to them, and I see them succeed, this it's so enriching, you know, it brings you this satisfaction. It's hard for me to explain the feeling it gives me when I see that I'm helping others. It just makes me very happy. So I feel this is why I need to continue doing that. And I try to find ways of helping others.
Yes.
You know,
I
like for
feel it
example,
like through the Zoom camera right now. I wish we were in person because you and I are so in sync on that. The act of service is my love language as well. And I really like how you delineated between what you do in your corporate professional world versus what you do in your free time, because you're giving and you're growing, and you say it's trivial, but it's huge. I identified this with one of the professors at Conestoga, and we realized that while it seems that it's easy to have the right answer in an interview or fill out an application because they're not embedded in our culture, simple things cannot resonate just because of language differences and cultural differences. So by you sitting and doing those mock interviews, you're really making an impact with things that may appear subtle to us, but really aren't. And social cues are so important. And that's probably part of what you're teaching them and enabling them. So I want to ask you a little bit more about women in tech. What I've noticed is that women in tech have a more, like a higher count of burnout. What do you account that for? So we work so hard to get them ready for the interview, to answer the right questions. They get into tech, they start excelling, we mentor them. And then as they elevate their career, they burn out. And then they leave the tech industry more so than their male counterparts.
I'm trying to answer this, not in a
No
strategic
holds barred
way.
here, by the way.
You know, I find women, we have a harder time having boundaries. And I feel that, and I don't think this is just related to the tech industry, you know, it's related to many other industries. But once we start having a career and we start elevating our career, I feel we become very frightened of losing this. And I relate this to the imposter syndrome. You know, we have got there by our work, but because of the field we're in, it feels like we got there by luck and we're afraid of being found out. So we need to continuously working hard, you know, even if we're tired, we don't take the time, you know. And most of the women that I know who are working in techs, they're mothers, and you know, we have children to tend to. So even if we finish our day like at 5 or 6, we have another shift that starts with our children. And most of the time, when the kids go to bed, if we have some work that is not finished, we're going to go back and do it. So we don't put a boundary, like we don't take breaks. I find one thing actually I was reading about, I'm always trying to grow myself as a person. And one of the things that I read, it's like, why don't, like, actually not, it's a suggestion, like, why don't you program your breaks? But it goes a long way because, you know, we want to work so hard. We want to be considered the same as our male counterparts who might not have the same, and I don't want to generalize, but who do not maybe have the same task we have at home, like, you know, do homeworks with the kids, cook or whatever. And so when you program breaks during the day, just like to breathe or like to go for a walk, this could go a long way. But I really think the main thing that we burn out faster than men in the tech industry because we don't put boundaries for ourselves. If we're asked by a superior to do something, you know, we're not going to say, okay, you know what, it's not an emergency, I won't do it tonight, I will do it tomorrow. Or, you know, I have to finish this task, and we see the task just piling on top of our heads. But again, I might be wrong. This is my perception. This is why I feel perhaps women get burnt faster than men in the tech industry.
Yes,
But
and
yeah.
I agree with you. The boundaries are the hardest thing, and no is a complete sentence is something that I've learned only recently. But everything you say yes to, you're also saying no to 5 other things. So we have to be diligent with our time. And it's true what you said about going home and having a whole other set of responsibilities. And that might be young children or aging parents. but I tend to think as nurturers, we want to take care of everything. But then there's actually the physical difference. Men and women are physical, and we have differences in our cycles and how our body works, and as we age, the amount of sleep we need and hormonal changes. And so we're balancing all of that plus
Yeah.
all the things you said. And a thought that I've had often about it is also because we feel that we have to fight so hard to get that seat at the table, we try to emulate what we see around us, which is predominantly male. And so sometimes I feel almost, and I'll say personally, like I used to feel like I had to show up like others in the room, which meant dress a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way. And it's only recently I've learned that my femininity and my differences are actually my superpower. Right. And I'm not sure how you feel about that, but once I realized that, it sort of helped me to put more effective boundaries in place and show
Yeah.
up more authentically. But I think especially young professionals struggle with that, right? Like, how
We
else
feel
do
that we need to fit a certain, like, a cookie
mold?
cutter. Yeah.
Yes,
I feel, it's funny that you said that, you just discover that your femininity is your superpower, or, you don't see it now, because this morning, I'll be very honest with you, my kids woke up late and I had to run. I didn't have the time to do my hair, but I have curly hair.
you have
And for
beautiful
the
hair,
long-
by the way. I have seen lots of pictures.
and for the longest time, I was told that having curly hair is not professional. And you know what? It's funny. I did the test. I used to always wear my hair straight, and it gave me a stricter look, if I could put
Yes.
this way, and I would be treated differently by men, like when I would, when we would speak in rooms or whatever. And this is even before my career here at Sigma in the tech industry. Men would take me more seriously when I have, straight hair, but the moment I have curly hair, their demeanor with me would change. You
Yes.
know, when I would say something, they would just start laughing, or like, some of them would even come and like, touch my hair, like, what's wrong with you? I'm the same
Right.
person. It's my natural hair. So, and recently I decided to embrace my curly hair. So now most of the time when I go, I give I go to a lot of conferences, I give speeches. Now, most of the time, like, unless, I want to, straight hair would look better with the outfit I'm wearing, but I would keep my curly hair and I'm proud of it. But it's things that it's funny, because like I'm turning 42 actually in 4 days. And it's only recently that I started, embracing myself, embracing my differences. So it's nice that you mentioned that I'm not the only one who is feeling this way, that it's just recently that you discover your superpowers are something within you, something that, you don't need to change.
Right, because that word authenticity has been thrown around so much in the last few years. But really, to me, that's exactly what it means. Like just being able to wear your curly hair, being able to express who you truly are, and feel comfortable in that. And if
Yeah.
people around the table don't understand, then it's perhaps their ignorance, not that you should change and fit into a mold. And I think that's you and I share that so much. And that's why we do a lot in diversity and inclusion and equity, right? DEIB, because we're out there and we're trying to encourage people to embrace that same thing. And so tell me more about that, because I know it's a mission for you. Like you're running Sigma, you're running all the operations for Canada, you've got 2 boys, you're mentoring women and helping them get prepared for the job interview. Then you're on like 3 boards, you're in women in tech, you're doing all these amazing, amazing things. How do you how do you find time to get out there and really focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging?
That's an excellent question. And I even sometimes ask myself, how do I find the time to do it? But when you're passionate about something, it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like a struggle to do it.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I'm working on an article about diversity, equity, inclusion in AI, and how, keeping in mind DI when we're developing algorithms for artificial intelligence is very important. And I had a busy day. I had a lot of things to do, but then in the evening, I had a hairdresser appointment. So I brought my laptop because I knew for 1 hour, no, for 45 minutes, I'm going to have the hair coloring. And, I don't have my kids asking me for things. I don't have, it's late, like, it's in the evening, I'm not working. So I knew that I had 45 minutes where I could focus and work on this, and because it's important for me. And and it's funny because I was typing, and this lady next to me, she was telling me, why are you still working? And I said, no, it's for pleasure. She told me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing an article about this. She told me, oh, but this seems like work. And I said, no, for me it's pleasure. So I find when it's something I truly care about, I don't care like where I am, like it gives me pleasure, so I'm going to do it. And I find it so important because for me, helping people, like especially women, like people who are new immigrants in Canada, where like in Montreal where I live, it's very important for me because when my parents moved, before, without going really into the details, but my father went from being a very well-off man, a businessman, and we had to run for our lives, like literally to come here. And when we started here, no one was here to help my parents, you
Yes.
know? And I've seen my dad struggle, he's a very proud man. So I saw him struggle. I saw him taking, like very, very hard jobs to do, when you're a pharmacist, when you're a businessman, when, you used to take your kids every year to spend 4 months in Europe, for summer vacation, and to start like really, really like at the bottom of the ladder and no one is helping you. You have language barrier, you have a lot of kids. We're a big family, we're 7 kids, and my mom at that time wasn't working. So I wish someone was here to help my dad. Okay, this is what you have to do. This is how you apply for job interviews here. This is how, so it, like, it's something very close to my heart. I want to be able to help people because many people come here and they think everything is going to be easy, they're going to find jobs the next day, because this is how people portray, like, the Western world to people from
Yeah.
Africa. Like it's a land of dreams, but you can actually achieve these dreams. But there's so many hurdles, and
Yeah.
it's very hard for first generation immigrants to really like succeed and have. I'm a second generation immigrant here, so I'm happy. I went to the best schools here in Canada. I studied hard. I got a career, but we worked really hard for it. And
Yeah.
my father worked really hard. They did a lot of sacrifices. So I want to be able to help these people to alleviate a bit of the difficulties and the deception, they get when they move here. So it's very close to my heart, I think. And this is why I think I don't, not I think, I know this is why it doesn't disturb me if I have to, to work with these women, like on my weekends, late at night. Some of them, when you're mentoring people, at some point you build a connection, they become friends. So I have some of them texting me, like, oh, today my kid is driving me crazy. And they know I'm a mom. So, oh yeah, mine too is driving me crazy. This is the situation I live in. This is how I leveraged it,
Right.
so
Yes.
you become friends with them, and it becomes not even like you're doing a service to them. They're doing a service to you because they bring you happiness when you see that they succeed, or they had a small win. It generally brings me happiness. So this is why I honestly love doing it, and I will continue doing it, even if it means that instead of going to bed at 10, I'll go to bed at midnight, or if it means I have to write an article about why diversity, equity, and inclusion is important while doing my hair.
Yes. And it's not work. I agree with you. And I think that's part of the problem is, as you said, cookie cutter earlier, sometimes we box in our potential and we box in what we can be. And so people ask me the same question: how do you fit it all in? Because I work with immigrant women in business. I do talks. It's very similar. When you're talking, it's touching my heart because I'm like, oh, we're soul sisters. But it's not work. And I always say, be brave enough to diversify your portfolio in life. If you're willing to do it in finances, do it in your life. Try something new. And for me, even my corporate role doesn't feel like work. because we're running teams and we're running marketing events and we're looking at operations, and it's fascinating and it helps us stay growing and learning. I'm also a second generation immigrant, and my parents also, had to build from the ground up, and it taught me resilience. If you
Yes.
think about what it taught you, what do you think some of the biggest lessons and values watching that instilled in you?
You know, how can I say it? I'm trying to find, yes, it taught me resilience because, I saw how my dad struggled when we first arrived, and I see where he is right now. And I'm very proud of him because he was able to rebuild the comfort and the life we had in Sudan. It took him a lot of years to do it here, but he was able to. So that showed me that, in life, you're going to face a lot of struggles. They could be family struggles, they could be financial struggles, but never stop believing and have faith, you know? And actually, my favorite book, I'm going to take a quote from my favorite book, The Alchemist. You
That's
know,
my favorite book.
yeah, and-
I love it. It's like
yeah,
my all-time favorite book.
yeah.
Sorry for all of you at home. We're just having a love moment here.
And there's like a passage that say, when you really want something, the whole universe will conspire for you to achieve it. And when my dad came here, he wanted us to be safe because we escaped like a coup d'etat, and we had to leave in a rush. My father was stuck in Sudan. We had to. It was like, honestly, I think it was. Although my childhood was the best time of my life, but that time when we had to kind of leave my country, come here, it was a very traumatic experience for me. And to see, like, when we came here and to see my dad started from the ground, and I'm very close to my dad. We have this, even as a young girl, I was always going with him to his business meetings and everything. And my dad always told me, what, it's hard, but I will get through it.
Yeah.
And to see him, I feel like, what, the universe conspired for him to give us the life. Well, it wasn't the same level of life, but it was still an honorable life, a happy life that we had back home in Sudan. And, and I've been through a lot of struggles in my life, but I always believe, what, there is something better. I have to keep fighting. If I find myself on the ground, it's all right. I'll dust myself up and I'll continue walking until the day, okay, I can't no more. But that day, I'm knocking wood, hasn't arrived yet. And I'm pretty sure that if that day comes where I feel that, I can't fight no more, I know that I have built an amazing support system with friends and family who are going to be there for me until I can rise again. Sometimes when we face difficulties, we feel that, it's the end of the world.
Yes.
This is it, and we tend to give up. And, this could be like, losing your job, oh, that's it. I'm giving up. I'm too tired, and we start in this self-pity journey. And I think this is very bad when you start self-pitying yourself, because you know what? You're more than that job you lost. You're more than, I don't know, that divorce you've been through. You're more than whatever difficulty you have. You're much more. You just have to find the faith to
Yes.
keep on going. And I feel that we live in a society nowadays where it's so easy to lose faith and to start pitting ourselves and going to depression and going to sadness. And I mean, you can just get through it, finding the right tools, finding the right people. You can get through anything in life, I find.
Yes, I agree. And it's just as much as the universe will conspire to give you everything you want, if you're constantly thinking about the negative and you're constantly feeling that it's the end, then you will be shown that way, right? Because the thought creates the language that you put out into the world. That energy starts to circulate and bring back to you what you're thinking and what you're saying. And if all you're talking about are negative things, then that's going to happen.
It
Now, for
changes your
me,
vibration, I
you
find.
change your
Yeah,
vibrational
yeah.
frequency. Absolutely. And when you're giving back and your acts of service and you have gratitude, your vibrational frequency is so much higher and it attracts more of that to you. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity, because the other thing is, I find in our society, as much as we like to see that the glass is half empty or the person cut us off or that we lost our job, there's a rising I don't want to say population, but a rising thought that everything always has to be good all the time. And for me, I feel the only time I can release things from my body of disappointment, negativity, or fear is when I look at it and I face it dead on. And that might mean crying or hitting a pillow or staying in bed all day. And once I release it, then I'm over it. I've learned the lesson and I'm ready to go on to my next adventure. What do you feel about that? Do you think we always have to be sending out the vibrational frequency of everything's good, or how do you deal with some of those turbulent times that arise, other than, knowing we're going to get through it on the other end?
It's it's funny, but I give myself a timeline to mourn, depending of what is it I'm mourning. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, if it's losing a job, I'm going to give myself like a week. I'm like, in all honesty, I'll give myself a week. This is like, I have a week to cry because, it's hurtful because you feel disposed of, you feel not, and
Not
you
safe.
exactly. So, and I'm saying this because it happened to me. Like, at some point in my career, I lost a job and I gave myself a week. Okay, Hannah, you're going to cry for a week. You're going to be sad for a week. But after that, you're going to go back, start searching for jobs. If you need to go back to school, you do it. I give myself a timeline. I feel if you don't give yourself a limit, and I might feel very like people might, sometimes my mom tells me, Hannah, you're like a robot, but I'm not, because and this is who I am, it might not work for everyone, but I need to know, like, okay, if I'm going to be grieving, I could grieve for years and whatever, but it's fine. Like, but I need to give myself a timeline. Okay, after this time, like my pity party is over and I'm going to go on with my life. And yes, I could be sad about it. And I journal. And I find this is a great way for me because yes, I give myself timeline to cry over something, but then, you always have, sometimes you go back to that feeling that made you sad or whatever, and it's okay. We're human.
Mhm.
Like, some things are going to stay with us. And I write about it. Today, this event happened and it reminded me of that pain.
Mhm.
And I acknowledge it. And I'm grateful because, whatever pain, whatever difficulty we face, it's giving us, it's making us stronger. So it's okay to be sad. And that toxic positivity that you mentioned, it's so relevant because nowadays, and I always tell my kids, because on social media, people are not going to show themselves crying because I don't know, they're unhappy. We tend to just want to show what's best in our life. So it's important to keep in mind that this is, to some extent, it's fake because life is not perfect. So it's okay to be sad. It's okay to have downtimes. It's okay. But always know that something good is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when you feel empty, and it's so funny because I actually told this thing this morning to one of my close friends. I told her, you're feeling empty now because the universe is preparing you for all the good that is going to come for you
Yes.
to.
That is so good, because when you lose that job, lose that relationship, lose that thing that you've been working towards or you've had for a long time, part of you does sort of die, part of you does fall away. But if it's not fully released, then there's no space for what you're rebirthing to come in.
Yeah.
And we go through different stages in our life. And every time something is lost, we have an opportunity to grow and to develop. So I love that. The other thing I love about what you said is journaling and gratitude. Every day I start my day with gratitude. And even if it's the worst day, like where I'm crying or I'm falling apart, I am thankful that I woke up on this side of the earth and I can see my son and I can see those I love just one more day, even if I can't do some of the things that I want to do. And I think that's very powerful. You talked about it earlier. It emits an energy of appreciation, and it can be scary though when you're in the in between, I call it, right? That in between
Yeah.
state, you've lost and you don't know what is coming next. And so that uncertainty starts to make you create these stories, and they're generally worst case, right? Now, for me, that's because of the subconscious brain and what we programmed in our head. And we're always in fight, flight, or freeze, right? When we feel unsafe. So if you could tell me, coming here, going through that ultimate feeling of unsafety where you had to, modify your life, leave everything behind. Do you remember as a child, like under 7, like what was that like? What were some of the things that came up for you as a result of such a traumatic change?
Um, I was actually 9 when we had to leave Sudan, and I would say I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived with anger for such a long time because I had to leave my home, I had to leave my friends. And when you live in such circumstances, you don't know, will I ever see these people again? So,
Yes.
and you also feel guilty because we were able to leave, but some family members, some friends were not able to leave.
Yes.
So it was anger, it was guilt. And it's all these feelings, and it's so funny because, when we left, I had my elder sister, I had my younger sisters with me. At that point, we're only 5 kids in the family. Now we're 7, but we all lived this differently.
Yes.
And when we came to Canada, I wasn't happy at all. Like my sisters were happier, we're starting over. But me, I was kind of stuck in the past. I was stuck, I want to be in my old room in Sudan. I want to be in my old school. So with time, and until now, I have a hard time letting go.
Mm.
Like even if I tell myself you have 5 days to cry, but as I said, it stays with me. This sadness stays with me, or this anger of a situation could stay with me. So I'm learning to let go. I find it's important, and it's not because I'm controlling, it's not because, but it's sometimes, especially when it's something I truly loved and cared about, it takes me time to like truly heal about it. So coming
Mhm.
here to Canada, it wasn't scary. It was just like I was just angry. I was an angry child. Like I didn't want to be here at all. I at that point I was like, it's not a privilege to be here. It felt like a punishment. I just wanted to be home, and but I got over it. I mean, it took me time, and you know what? Until this day, sometimes when I think about our old house in Sudan, I start crying. I miss it.
Mhm.
Like I'm very grateful for being in Canada. Canada is the country that welcomed us, when we had to run from Sudan and everything. But my heart is still in Africa. It's still in Sudan. Like this part of me, I can never detach. So I'm embracing it.
Yes.
So I love, like when I can go back home, I go. If I can't go, it's okay. It's it's a roller coaster of emotions. I don't know how to explain it. I
Oh,
don't
you're
know if
explaining it
you
so
can
well,
relate,
right? You're
but
explaining it
yeah.
so well because like you said earlier, you have your mourning period, but that doesn't mean that the thing that hurt you or the thing that made you sad or the thing that you're mourning doesn't come up for the rest of your life. It just means that you're not wallowing in it or you've learned how to cope with it because you've actually faced it head on. So
Mm.
now when it arises, it brings different lessons and different meanings. Also, your heart being still attached to your childhood home. Of course it is. That makes so much sense. And that's okay. Our heart is our greatest gift, right?
Yeah.
So, do you remember? Because I had some anger, I had my hurts fuel my anger when I was a child. Do you remember when you learned to curb the anger or transform the anger or how that shifted in you?
I think I stopped being angry. It's funny. It took me a long time. I think I stopped being angry when I was like in secondary 4, which is like grade 7, 8, 9, 10. When I was in grade 10, I stopped being angry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and I think I read actually that year, I read a lot of books. And I started reading poetry, and
Yes.
then I started writing poetry. And
Yes.
I believe like the first, I've written a lot of, like when you get these small, I don't know how you call them, like notebooks, like this
Yes.
one. I've written a couple of these, like just poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not I think, I know, like the first poems I wrote, I'm pretty sure if someone read them, they would think, okay, this woman is either going to kill herself or kill other people, because it was just my anger finally coming out. I found an outlet to let it go, because
Yes.
I couldn't go to my dad and cry to him and tell him, I don't want to be here, I want to go back home, because it
Yeah.
would break his heart. I couldn't go tell my mom. I mean, they knew I wasn't happy. They could see it in me, because I would always talk about Sudan as my home. I would never refer to our house here as our home. I would say the house, you
Yeah.
know, I would make difference in the terms I use it. And words are so powerful. Now that I'm growing up, they're so powerful. If I started calling our house here home, I would have started feeling that it's home much faster, I find. So I started writing poetry, and as I evolved in my writing, I felt my anger leaving me.
Yes.
I'm no longer angry. And for so long, I truly hated the government that did the coup d'etat that forced us to leave. I hated them with passion. And I understood that hating people is empowering them. So
Exactly.
I have to let go of this anger, of this hatred towards them. This is meant to be. It was meant to be. We were
Yeah.
meant to leave our home. We were meant to be here. Something greater was waiting for us here.
That's
And this is how I started, this is when I was telling you, you have to think that there's always something better coming. For such a long time, leaving Sudan was kind of, my end for me. But
mm-hmm.
then I understood that, no, we're here for a reason. And this is how I started letting go my anger and live like
Yeah.
an angry teenage life.
Yes, yes, because the release, you learned the outlet. And when you finally let it go, you made space for something bigger to come in. So now, if you could go back to that little 9-year-old and you could tell her what all of your lessons to now have taught you, what's the one thing you would go back and say to her?
Not to be angry, honestly. As I said, I was an angry child because of that, and I think I've lost a lot of energy, over this, and to just love myself, love whatever experience that I have, and to let go of things,
Mm-hmm.
because the best is yet to come. I know it sounds very silly, but I truly believe whatever situation we face, and now with the maturity that I've gained, with the experiences I've been through, until you're dead, there is a chance, and when you die, there is afterlife, there is, a reincarnation, whatever people believe in, but even death is not a finality in itself.
Yes.
So always keep going. That's what I would tell the old Hannah, always keep going. Don't be angry. Enjoy the moment, live in the present. I find I used to live so much in my past that I wasn't able to enjoy my present.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are the things I would tell Hannah, and to have more fun. I'm too serious, apparently.
Yes, have fun, Hannah. Let that curly hair down. And your anger, it's okay. You didn't lose anything because it paved the path for who you are today. And it sounds like you have much more understanding and empathy of the anger and you release it instead of allowing it to control you now. So that's very powerful. You transmuted it into something greater. So bravo. Well, thank you, Hannah. I know that you've got to get to your next meeting, and I just appreciate you being with us so much today. For all of you listening, like Hannah's taken us on this journey, right? Coming here when she's 9 years old from a place she loved and called home and that her heart's still connected to, learning from her father who immigrated to this country. And although he had so much back home, he had to start from the ground and work his way up, suffered through language barriers and different struggles that many immigrant families and young families find in this great country of ours, but stuck it out and built something. And along the way, Hannah, you really embrace service and giving back and helping those around you. And although you didn't get back to Africa, as our favorite book, The Alchemist, says, the universe conspired to give you what was in your highest good, and that is helping women around the world who watch this and in Canada to develop and grow their career and give immigrants a start that perhaps would have helped change or speed up your father's growth back then. So we thank you for taking your story and for running with it and for playing big out there and using your voice, because although you used poetry when you were in grade 9, now you're using your voice on podcasts and on stages, and you're doing talks, and you're really advocating for those around to elevate their game, use their voice, step into their power, and play their authentic role in this world. So I thank you so much for all the work you do, for spending time with me on this holiday special. And for all of you at home, remember, chase your dreams. Anything is possible. And if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. Just surrender it to the universe and see what happens. Thank you for being with me. Thank you, Hanna. I appreciate your time. And I can't wait to meet you in person when I'm in Montreal.
Me too, Tara. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe and follow me. And also, if you want some other content, hit me up on Tara Myshrall Speaks on Instagram, or join my inner circle at taramyshrall.com. You will be the first to receive new content when it drops, as well as the first to get the Women's Spotlight. Learn about other amazing women in our local community that are up to big things. Thanks again, with love and light. Until next time, guys.